Most of you, maybe all of you, have no idea who I am, but I'm from New York. I would do theater in New York, which is not an easy thing to do in the sense that it's an incredibly expensive, competitive, and heavily institutional theater market. When I started writing plays 10 years ago, I had no idea that there'd be any political dimension to my work whatsoever, which is why there is now a political dimension to my work. I wrote what I thought of as normal plays, family dramas, plays that reflected my basic environment, and I tried to get to the truth of what I was experiencing. And I thought that being truthful and being an artist were sort of the only things that mattered. That was in my naive bubble as a kid and as a teenager, as a college student, just reading books and dreaming of the big city and dreaming of being an artist. That was the criteria that I thought mattered. Now, that was very naive. What I learned relatively quickly is that self-identification, that way of projecting an artistic self into the world, was sort of considered to be dangerous. There was something about presenting yourself as an artist without an ideological agenda in New York, in America, in 2015 or so, 2014, that made people feel unsettled and, in a way, always produced the question, well, like, what do you believe? What's the point? What's the takeaway? How is your work in some way activist or promoting an activist agenda? Because that, in a way, was how having some kind of activist dimension to your work was really how theater makers survived and thrived, and still to a degree do in New York, although that's changing in the last decade. And so I never really had a chance to become a normal playwright. I never really had a chance to see my work go to a big stage. I think if I had applied to MFA programs, I would have been rejected. Again, not because my plays were hyper-radical, but because there was just a total absence of a categorizable politics that could make people say, okay, that's who he is, we know who he is. And there was something subversive about having characters who would deconstruct the points of view that were constructed in the course of the drama. So I had to go underground from the beginning. I had no other choice. I am passionate about what I do, and I don't think I have any other real skills. So I was stuck with it, and people around me did say, okay, you have talent. I had some kind of talent, but I had nowhere to go with it. So I had to build my own institutions. I had to find a way to self-fund, self-produce, and work outside of institutions. So over the last 10 years, that's what I've done. And that has resulted, after a really long and kind of winding process, in a building, in 200 events a year, in dozens of plays, both my own, younger playwrights, classics, and in a kind of loose working coalition, probably of 50 actors, writers, directors. And it's growing. We were talking at dinner last night about how scary and hard freedom is for people. And I think that's true in the American arts and especially in the American theater. It's not easy to make theater that doesn't have a clear ideological message. And there's not a day that goes by that my own work and my own working coalitions with people are not threatened by the eruption of politics, and especially the eruption of like hyper-progressive politics, in which there's not some kind of demand made of me to declare myself in the culture wars. And at the same time, my constant refusal to clearly declare myself has opened up a space that others have followed into, and that I know that the people I work with are grateful for. And often my actors will say, like, I agree with you on whatever issue. And even if that issue is me just saying, like, we're going to let different kinds of people into the space, and we're going to keep our own politics strategically ambiguous, because the theater can't have a politics. 50 people can't have a singular politics. It can only illuminate the different kinds of tensions that are latent within us. And I think that's the contribution we can make. So it's so hard to do this in 5 minutes, but what I think I can crystallize this talk around is the idea that you can build an institution. And the technical elements of that we do not need to get into today, but you can actually build new kinds of institutions around that space you open by your refusal to be reductive, to be simplistic, to be ideological, and to be an activist. You actually have to be an artist rather than an activist, and if you do that consistently, and you also have to be a good artist, I think, because that matters too. If you're doing good art, again, another debate for another time, in a way that defines art as pre and post and non-ideological, then people will follow, and that something can happen. And that something, which again is very hard to define and categorize, has all the kind of magic that I think we know that we're missing from our hyper-ideological lives in the West. And as difficult it is, and as much as I go to bed every night worrying about how to pay the bills on the space and how to keep everybody happy, I don't know if I would ever trade that very humanistic magic that emerges when a group of people cease to think in a contemporary way and start to think in ways and to act in ways, literally, in a theater space, that get deeper into the human past and deeper into the human psyche than, again, what we're permitted to think in the West, so to speak. So I have no idea how much time I have left, but...
We're drawing to a close, so...
Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say.
I think we can unpack more, and also together with the audience and between yourselves. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.